Welcome along then to this week's look at all the Premier League and FA Cup action with Titanbet as Chelsea take on Manchester United. Well, both Premier League and FA Cup action to tell you about this week on Titanbet. We start off in the Premier League, and the first game on the list is Crystal Palace against West Brom, 3 o'clock on Saturday. The Baggies are in danger of being dragged back down towards the relegation places. Tony Pulis's men all of a sudden can't defend. Palace are absolutely flying. I'm going for a draw.
Yeah, Pulis would love to get one over on his former club, wouldn't he? But history suggests it won't be West Brom's day. They've won just one of the last 9 meetings with the Eagles, and I fancy Palace to extend that decent record as well. I'm going for Palace half-time and full-time in this one. West Brom concede a lot of goals in the first half of matches, so look for Palace to open the scoring and go on to the win.
Moving on, Everton take on Burnley. It could be last chance saloon almost for the men from Turf Moor. Everton have made themselves comfortable. They're going to finish in mid-table. It'll end up being a disappointing season. I think Burnley will battle their way to at least a point, maybe even all 3.
Can't see it. I can just see Everton edging this one. Just a bit more quality in the Everton side. Burnley concede a lot from away from home. They've conceded 13 times on the bounce in the league. So Everton to score has got to be a nailed-on bet, and I fancy Everton to win to 0.
Leicester take on Swansea. Leicester have given themselves a little squeak of a chance, haven't they? They're playing well. They won at the Baggies last week. They've got to beat Swansea at home if that chance is not to be extinguished. I think they're going to. Swansea on the beach somewhat. I'm going for a Foxes win.
Yeah, I fancy the Foxes in this one. It's going to be a nervy afternoon though, isn't it, for Leicester? They've beaten the majority of the sides 1-0 at home this season when they have won matches. I fancy it to be another 1-0 victory, so under 2.5 goals and a 1-0 win for Leicester, the way to go.
Stoke against Southampton. Neither side likes losing. Stoke certainly don't like losing at home. Southampton still have Europa League hopes. So I'm going to go for a draw.
Yeah, I fancy this one to be a draw as well. Both teams to score again in this one. Saints are unbeaten, aren't they, in the last 3 visits to the Britannia Stadium. Stoke have got a decent home record. All points to a score draw.
Finally on Saturday, it's the big one. Chelsea against Manchester United. If Chelsea are going to be knocked off their perch at the top of the Premier League, and I doubt it, then they have to lose this one. Manchester United have to beat them. United are probably playing their best football of the entire season. Not sure how they've got to that position, but they have. But I still fancy Chelsea. Under Jose Mourinho, he's too canny. He'll put out a defensive side. A draw will do fine for him, and that's what I'm going for.
I can just see Chelsea edging this one. I fancy there to be a bit of controversy as well. How many times have we seen it this season in the big games where there's been a controversial decision? So a Chelsea win and perhaps a red card as well.
Moving on to Sunday, Manchester City take on West Ham at lunchtime. City's season has suddenly fallen off the rails, but I think they'll have too much for West Ham. West Ham have been on the beach already since about Christmas. They're turning over. They've got the new sandcastle going on. City are going to win it 3-0.
Yeah, it's going to be an easy win for City. I have to agree with you there. West Ham have not won away from home this calendar year. City, despite their poor run, have won the last 3 at home by 0. So I fancy it to be another victory 0 this weekend for City.
Spurs take on Newcastle at St James's Park. Newcastle on Sunday. Newcastle have had a dreadful run recently under John Carver. I think the knives are out for poor old John. He'll be back to a coaching role if he's still there at all next season. Spurs have hit a stumbling block since they lost at Old Trafford last month. I'm going for 0-0.
I fancy Spurs just to edge it. They've won 5 times, 2-1 away from home this season. I fancy them to make it a 6th against the Newcastle team, who I can't see picking up another point this season.
First of the FA Cup finals this weekend will be Reading against Arsenal. That's on Saturday evening. I think the Gooners will have too much for the Royals. Going to go all the way to Wembley again next month to defend their FA Cup crown. I'm going for Arsenal.
I fancy there to be over 3.5 goals in this one to start with, and an Arsenal win. Arsenal have scored at least 4 in the last 3 meetings with Reading, who have never beaten Arsenal. It all points to an Arsenal win, despite the fact this is the FA Cup, so I'm going to go Arsenal 4-1 in this one.
And finally, this weekend on Sunday afternoon, it's Wembley again for Aston Villa against Liverpool. Tim Sherwood's revolution at Villa, could it end in the giddy heights of an FA Cup final, or Stevie G's last ever performance for Liverpool on his birthday before he leaves the club for the USA. Could that be an FA Cup final in May? Could we even stand such emotion? I don't know what's going to happen. I think I'll go for a draw, maybe penalties.
Yeah, I fancy penalties as well. It's very tight to call, isn't it? Liverpool have sort of squeezed through to this part of the competition. All their victories coming by a single goal margin, and I think there'll be a lot of fingernails chewed at Wembley. So the draw full time, and then Liverpool to qualify for the final.
There you go. We'll be back next week with a look at all the latest Premier League action. Don't forget, if you're a fan of any club, you can enter our Ultimate Fan competition for your chance to win tickets to any of the 3 major finals this summer in Warsaw, Berlin or London. Just go to www.titanbet.co.uk/UF.